This is the meeting of the Shelton Metropolitan Parks District Board. I would call that meeting to order at this time. This meeting will happen before our regular commission meeting, and this is actually a special meeting with the same purpose as the regular commission meeting to discuss the budget for the Parks Board, for the Metropolitan Parks Board. So first item on our agenda is a consent agenda. Leslie Ann, would you read the consent agenda, please?
Consent agenda, board meeting minutes of October 29th, 2012.
Okay. If the fellow board members have had a chance to read through the consent agenda, I would ask for a motion to approve the consent agenda as read.
I move the consent agenda as read.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve the Shelton Metropolitan Parks District consent agenda as presented. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. And the bulk of our agenda this evening is a public hearing for the Shelton Metropolitan Parks District budget. And I will turn it over to Mr. O'Leary at this time.
Do you have any comments, Kathy, on the annual tax issue?
Maybe after we go through the budget briefly. Then we'll move into the ad valorem once the hearing commences.
Okay. You have, you call up, you got those slides, Terry?
And we do need to recess out of the regular meeting and into a public hearing, is that correct? Okay. At this time, I will recess out of the regular park board meeting and into a public hearing, again, for the purpose of discussing the budget and ad valorem taxes.
Okay, this is the 2013 preliminary budget overview. This is essentially recommendations that delivered by myself from the Finance Committee, which is made up of the Finance Director and the Commissioner of Finance and myself. And this is going to be pretty quick, if my slides will go. Terry, I'm not kidding. I'll just do like this. We have it shows that in balance we're going to spend more than we're going to take in. But that's a little bit of, that's really not what's happening. We actually have carryover dollars for a project that we did not complete in 2012 that will carry over into 2013. And by the time we do that, we will have by the time you factor that in, it's actually a balanced budget. And let's get to the next one, Terry. Here are the Callanan Park renovations. The last thing on the list is the project that we're talking about. You can see the expenses estimated expenses are $45,000, and the balance on the prior sheet was a little over 20. So, and then these are the two other projects. When we formed the Metropolitan Parks District, we told the voters that we would be accumulating reserves sufficient to manage the Metropolitan Parks District properly, and that we will be doing capital projects in accordance with our comprehensive parks plan, and that's what this is all about. So we've got a balanced budget. We have projects that we told people we're going to do, and that's kind of the long and the short of the Parks District budget. So, okay. Kathy.
Included in the preliminary budget is the property tax, which is pretty much the single source of revenue for the Metropolitan Parks District. And as you've heard, the revenues and expenditures, the revenues do include a property tax increase of 1%. And we've also included a refund levy of $681. That's refunds that were given out in 2012 that can be put back into the tax levy. So it includes a levy of $422,929 if passed. So before you in your packet, you have a resolution, Metropolitan Parks District number 7-1112, that authorizes a levy of $422,929. And that this resolution and levy must be submitted to Mason County Commissioners by no later than the end of this month. So I'll entertain any questions on the levy. Okay, if none, then staff requests introduction and adoption of this resolution. And also, that increases the ad valorem taxes for the calendar year 2013 and the 2013 levy certification.
Okay, if we could have a reading of resolution number 07-1112. Leslie Ann?
Resolution number 07-1112, a resolution of the Shelton Metropolitan Park District of Shelton, Washington, increasing the ad valorem taxes for calendar year of 2013.
Okay, so, and I would entertain a motion to approve resolution number 07-1112 and also to approve the levy certification.
I would move we adopt resolution number Shelton Metropolitan Parks District 07-1112, a resolution of the Shelton Metropolitan Park District of Shelton, Washington, increasing the ad valorem taxes for the calendar year 2013 and the 2013 levy certification.
And I second that.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve resolution number 07-1112 and the 2013 levy certification. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Okay, thank you. There is no old business, but I was wondering if, Mark, you could give us a brief report on what's going on at 6th Street Park?
Absolutely. As approved in the Shelton Commission meeting last week, we have instituted the temporary closure at 6th Street Park. The fence was placed last Friday morning, as well as park close signs. The crews have begun some of the renovation as we speak. There's some new topsoil down and some grass seed, hopefully getting some of that germinating here before the weather turns too cold, and in the planning stages of getting ready to do some more of those renovations throughout this winter into spring, and look forward to opening that park again at a later date.
Great, great. And the news from the neighbors is good so far?
They're pleased.
Great.
Yeah.
Great, thank you. Okay, there's no new business before us either tonight. Is there any public comment? Seeing none, I will announce that the next meeting of the Shelton Metropolitan Park District is December 3rd at 6 p.m. Prior to the regular commission meeting again, and this is the final budget adoption for the Parks District. With that, I will adjourn this meeting of the Shelton Metropolitan Parks District.
At this time, I would like to call to order the City of Shelton's regular City Commission meeting. And I'll make an announcement, and then we'll do the Pledge of Allegiance. I believe we'll do it that way. There will be an executive session following this meeting, and it will be with no action to follow. So will you please stand with me and recite the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. First item on our agenda is our commission reports. Commissioner Pennell.
I have no report.
This week, Commissioner Olson.
The only thing I have is on Wednesday night, I will be attending the Association of Washington Cities regional meeting.
And this week, I've been asked to attend a career day up at the Shelton High School during the day, and I'm going to be doing that. I will be also attending the AWC regional meeting with Commissioner Olson, and that will be held in Olympia, Washington. That concludes our commission reports. Next, if there's any general comment, anyone who would like to speak, we have a couple of opportunities in this meeting, and you would please sign up and give your name and address there on that white sheet of paper on the end of that desk in front of us. And now, we're going to do another exciting thing for you, and we are going to recess out of this meeting and go into an open public hearing. So we are recessing out of that meeting, and we are going to be going into an open public hearing concerning our 2013 preliminary budget and consideration for the 2013 ad valorem tax levy, and I'll turn this over to our city administrator, Dave O'Leary.
It's a new system. We're getting used to having the microphone on and off or not. I need the slides up, Terry, if you can do that. There we go. Okay, first change it. I'm going to move through this fairly quickly. We've been through this before in a study session. Wanted to give a chance to show the slides for purposes so the public can see it, but not spend a lot of time on each one. If anybody has questions that's watching this it's off the internet or on television, feel free to call us, and we want to make this as open and transparent as we can. Open economic out. These are the subjects we're going to talk about. Okay, next one. The economic environment actually looks pretty good, and it looks like that there's some threats, the result being uncertainty. We could, I think the problem that we have is that even under the most optimal conditions, the economic recovery is going to be somewhat slow and maybe even anemic. On the other hand, if it goes bad, I think the thought is it's going to go really bad. So the result is that we've structured this budget in order to be somewhat conservative. Okay. We have some highlights in the local economic environment. Some things actually look pretty good for us. The Shelton Hills development will be a very significant historic event for us, assuming that the economy allows that to go forward. It certainly looks like it will. The developer is processing the applications, and everything looks very positive at this point for it. We have had some improvements in some other things, some other local economics, but they've been very slight. And of course, we've had some good political support by way of some tax increases that voters have supported for us in the past, the most recent one being the public safety sales tax, for instance. And there's a lot of interest in economic development. Okay. Terry? Oh, there we are. So again, these are pretty much a summary of what we just talked about. The biggest threat to our goal of fiscal sustainability is expenses. We had a little bit of improvement in revenues, but not much to speak of. At least they're not going backwards as they were for quite some time. But we still have increasing expenses that are largely out of our control. And so the threat to that is if we can't control those costs, then we'll be back in the soup and we'll need to start making cuts again. But not this year. The idea is to follow the policies that we have, and if we do that, then we can remain fiscally solvent at least. Some of the challenges the employees are asking for and should. We haven't had raises and COLA increases since 2009, and they're thinking, well, this is the year, so we're bargaining with employees who have expectations that they get raises. We've had some losses of revenue that have liquor and in federal grants, and we also had losses in EMS levy. We had a reassessment of lands, assessed values in Shelton, just because real estate values are depressed, and that actually caused our EMS levy revenue to go down about $52,000. So the challenge is try to keep the costs down while our revenues aren't keeping up. Next one. It's an interesting thing. We had that, as I mentioned before, a reduction in assessed value. We had some other, and then the biggest impact was the loss in the EMS levy. Curiously, to the impact on the property owner, they'll see a slight increase, and actually see a slight decrease in the total taxes that they pay. And a lot of them might think, well, because we had a reassessment, my taxes will go down, and it's actually the tax rate will actually increase. But between the loss of the EMS dollars and the 1% increase that you'll otherwise see, you'll actually see a slight decrease in general for all property taxpayers. So that'll vary depending on what happened with their assessments from one year to the next and compared to other taxpayers, but generally they should be drops. Okay? These are some highlights of budget recommendations, and I'm going to even make them more highlighted. We are hiring a new department director. In fact, we spent all day today in interviews interviewing the top 5 candidates from the recruitment list that we had. And the reason we do this, we're at a historic crossroads. We have a new development coming in that is going to significantly challenge us. And frankly, what we had done was consolidate the 2 positions into one, and it's just it's never been ideal. We just don't have enough. There's just not enough people. Both of those are big jobs. One person doing it. So the idea was the judgment we made some months ago was that it was time to split that out and put that back like it was. So that's the result. Next one, Terry. And we're having a little trouble. This is my read on this. The chief of police has a slightly different read on it, and he's got some reasons for it. But what I'm concerned because. Sorry. Thank you. All right. I still got to push the button on this one. Yeah, okay. We've seen the last couple of months some increases in our property crime rate, and to me there's a correlation between what you put into or able to put into crime prevention efforts and property crimes, and we have been putting less less resources into that program, and lo and behold, the property crime rate went up. Well, there's some reasons for that aren't necessarily related to that, but still it's curious that it seems to track with that. So basically, we can't afford to do only with what we're doing, but my suggestion to you is that when we are able to, when the economy comes back, when we're able to afford more things, then this ought to be a high priority, the crime prevention effort. So, because we're trying to keep people from being victims. Next one. We're buying new cars. Basically, what's happened is we haven't kept up with replacement of our cars. They're wearing out, and so we now have a vehicle replacement. We're doing the best we can buying used cars, and we have the chief had asked for 2 cars. We're actually approving 1, and that should keep us up with the program that he's created on car replacement. Next slide. From over the past 10 years, or at least in the last decade, medical insurance premiums were advancing for us at about 10% per year. And I want to show you the next slide to show you that this is what happened. It started in the general fund at about a $500,000 cost, and it went up to 1.3, 1.2 and a half, 1.3 million, and that's just over 10 years. But if you take that same trend line and you extend it to the next one, next slide, Terry, this is what happened to you. Well, this is what we were facing back in around 2010 when we created this slide, and we've actually been able to make that not as severe as what it is. But that doesn't mean that it's not an unsustainable 10% increases. But what we've been able to do, next slide, Terry, is really negotiate with our unions and start shifting those costs to employees. And what we have at this point is a maximum insurance contributions from the city for all non-police bargaining units. We're negotiating for the same result with the police unions, but of course, I mean, and naturally, they're pushing back, saying, this isn't the way our life is supposed to be. You're supposed to cover these costs for us, and of course, over time, we can't. So it's just unsustainable. So anyway, so arbitration may be necessary. We're hoping not, but if we have to, that's what we'll have to do. So at any rate, next one. This is a program we talked about some months ago. I recently got a report. Some of the results, some of the reports actually showed us doing very well, and I'm not surprised about that because we've gotten to get very efficient with our operations given the limited resources that we have. A few showed that, well, maybe we've got some room for improvement. A few weren't necessarily related to finance, but related to some other things, and it was kind of sensational to report some of this stuff. But I think the value is that we have a chance to, if we've got something, and there were one or two areas where other cities seem to be doing better. So that gives us a place we can go to the other cities and say, how are you doing this, and able to do this more efficiently than we are. So that program continues in the budget for this year, and hopefully we can make more out of it. And it costs $1,000 a year, so it's not real expensive in terms of dollars. It is probably more of an impact on our staff time that's got to compile the information, but I think we'll do better when we work through it the second time. Second thing, we are updating the finance software. That was actually something that was approved in the 2012 budget. We'll do that next year. We're proposing, and that's going to continue. That program is going to continue on to this year. It's into 2013. It has to. It's a big job. We were obliged to replace our servers in order to make those systems go. We also have some older technology. Essentially, we're using Novell products right now, and you just get into where you can't. It's very difficult to find tech support for that. So we're proposing in the budget to shift to Microsoft platforms, and then we've got some laptops that are used in police cars, and basically they're 4 or 5 years old and they're worn out, and we're going to we're proposing to replace half of them this year and just make the rest of them last until next year, and until 2013, and then 2014 they'll all be swapped out. Let's see, we're doing quite a there's an this SR3 Park and Ride is a project that's been around for 10 years, or nearly 10 years. And we've just got some word from the state that you've got to, we've already spent some money on this, and they want us to finish the project. We haven't been able to find the rest of the money to finish the project, but if we don't, within the next 8 years, they're going to make us pay it back, the money that we've spent on it so far. So this is something we've got to get out in front of, and we're kind of re-examining our options right now. And rather than spending more money, we're trying to get a big plan for it. There's some opportunity to get some SR overlay, First Street between Railroad up to Pine Street, and from Pine over to Front, which is the way most people go rather than on the state route itself through town. And there's some opportunity to get that redone for a fairly minimal grant match, although it's expensive, along with the overlay project that the state is doing on SR3 through town. So that's a proposal. We're not sure whether we're going to get the grant to do it. Anyway, there's some Front Street is in real tough shape, and we've got a variety of options that we're looking at. We do need to do one of the projects that's associated with that, and then we may do others depending on how that turns out. And then we've also got a grant out for Pioneer Way, Lake Boulevard. If we can get that grant, we'll want to do that. We've only got so much money. Even if we had all this approved, we may not be able to get all of it done. I'm not going to go through these one at a time. These are street projects. I really want to put them in the record so that we know what we're going to build in the coming year. Okay, next one. These are water projects, and again, I won't do details, but if anybody has any questions, we can just follow up. The funding for these is approved in the capital. It's in the capital facility plan or within our maintenance capabilities. Let's see. We do have some issues in the sewer utility. Let's go to the next slide. So. And this is the, we're not sure at this point. We thought we had some funding from feds, which is that $2.2 million. That may or may not be the case, and we'll find that out in the coming weeks. And if not, then we'll go need to find some money to do this project. So, but this is the last of the Basin projects, the last of the sewer projects. We're going to tear things up and replace them. It is a mandate, and anyhow, and we will get real good result from Basin 3 project, assuming that we can find the money and it works. So anyway, next slide. Here are the specific recommendations relating to the sewer fund M&O. And what happened is that we've had pretty much we've told the sewer utility to live with the resources that they have. So we've got a fair amount of cushion within that budget, and the director had asked for new funding to do these things, and of course any new funding that you authorize is going to be reflected in rates, and we're going to be looking at rate increases associated with all the projects that we've done. So we've said, well, let's try to keep the lid on that. And so everything, we've either said no to the request, or we've said you need to do that within existing resources. So let's keep going, Terry. Other recommendations, these are for ongoing expenses rather than one-time. Next one, Terry. These are recommended. These are our one-time expenses. So whenever there's something that you do rarely, or every 5 or 10 years or so, you can justify that as a one-time expense. And what we do for people that haven't seen our systems is we actually account for the dollars that come in that would be one-time. Like you're only going to get building permit revenue and sales tax revenue on new construction one time. So we account for that separately, and then we use that money to, rather than for salaries, which you wouldn't have the money the next year to do it, you put these into things that are not recurring. So anyhow. Other things that are going to come before the end of the year, we're working on an update to a strategic plan. We just finished the end of a 6-year strategic planning period, and we have a new strategic plan that's under development at this point. There's also an annual work plan that we do that really talks about projects that are undergoing in the city. And as you know, we've got an economic development plan update. Terry. Here's the next. I guess here we are at the top one. We only have 2 more steps after this one to work through. So anyhow, we've had a very challenging time over the past 4 or 5 years. We've had cuts. We've had people that haven't gotten raises for a long time, and what we've done generally is we've just said, okay, we've got something else for you to do. Somebody leaves, or and all of a sudden their job's not filled, and we say, okay, you've now got your job and their job too, or you split it out that way, and we've asked for more, and they've stepped up. So it's important for me to say thank you to them for those pretty valiant efforts. So anyway, now Kathy, it's yours.
Thank you. And move to the next slide. Okay, this is a list of all the funds that make up the $56 million budget. And each fund is balanced with revenues equaling expenditures, and we'll get into more of the detail. Next slide, Terry. This next slide does show comparison of each fund's revenues expenditures from 2010 to 2013. And most of the substantial increases are due to projects rolling through, and we'll touch on them as we hit each fund down the line here. So employee costs. Employee costs are a big piece of the city's budgets. Total personnel costs for 2013 are over $7 million. It's an increase of 2% over the 2012 budgeted employee costs. These are the costs that are in this budget. There was no COLAs put in. The major medical insurance is included in there now. Our primary insurance that majority of the employees have had an increase of a premium increase of 6%, although we have a wellness program that has done very well, so we were able to reduce it to close to 4%. So that worked really good. As many of the employees have maxed out, they have a cap that the city will pay on their medical insurance, and they're maxed out on that. So this is really important to keep these costs down because it impacts them greatly. Okay, and as you can see on the list, we've reduced staffing levels by 1.5 FTEs. quarter-time animal control officer, half-time regional utility accountant analyst, quarter-time financial services position, and a half-time unfilled sewer operator. And what with that reduction, we've also increased it by that public works director. And we have 3 bargaining agreements that are open for negotiations of wages and benefits, and one with wages only. Okay, next slide. Now, this chart shows the details of the employees' costs, over $7 million. 73% are salary costs, with the next being the health insurance, 17%. Next slide. The general fund. Now, the general fund is the city's largest single fund and accounts for most of the general services and activities of the city government. And it shows that for 2013, that in balancing just expenditures to revenues current year, 2013, we'll have a shortfall of about $655,000. The requested expenditures for 2013 do include over $700,000 of one-time money requests. And that shortfall does include $160,000 of shortfall in operations. And staff recommends using the uncommitted fund balance from 2012 to balance the 2013 budget. Now that will leave a $1,533,850 fund balance, which is comprised of $631,000 of cash flow reserves, $825,000 strategic reserves, and a reserve of a little over $76,000 of monies donated to the city or received with legal restrictions that can only be used for specific purposes. Now, the chart that's below there shows our expenditures by use in the general fund. Now, the general fund is service-oriented and supports about 76% of all employee costs of the city. And of course, salaries and benefits make up 46% of the fund's proposed $12 million budget. Next slide. Now, the operating budget for the general fund is a little over about $9.5 million, and you can see public safety is the greater portion of that, almost half of the budget. Okay, the next would be next slide will be the revenues. Slide right here. Let's see. Revenues by source, you can see that 49% of our revenues are from taxes, property and sales taxes. And there's some B&O. Our taxes are about 0.5%. Of the taxes, that's that slide on the bottom, you can see that the property tax is 32% and sales tax is 33%. So that's a good portion of our revenue source from the taxes. Next slide. This slide just shows the changes in our revenues from 2010 to 2013 budget. And basically, you'll see the taxes changing. The 2012 projected in 2013 does include the public safety sales tax. And it also, 2013 shows a loss of $52,000 of the EMS property taxes as the assessed valuation has lowered, causing us to hit the maximum rate allowed by the voters. Let's see. The intergovernmental revenue dropped substantially from 12 to 13, and that's the loss of another U.S. Department of Justice grant and our HVAC Energy Conservation Project grant. Those are some of the highlights. You'll see the licenses and permits were much larger in 2010 and 11, but that's when we had our wastewater treatment plant project and then the Mason General Hospital permits going through. And so they've gone through and they're not here now. Next slide. This is a slide that shows how we're tracking the public safety sales tax. When the voters approved it, the city promised to track it and use it to support public safety sales, public safety services, so that we could fill with that, so that we would when we have loss of revenues, we could use this money to support and try to maintain services as best we can. And in the chart, it just shows where 2011 was the base year, net of all revenues that support the public safety services, and our projections. And between 2011 and projected 2012, we've increased our costs, our base cost, by $315,000. Now, the public safety sales tax for 2012 is only estimated to come in at about $108,000. So we use that to support these services so that we can maintain them for as long as possible. 2013 is estimated to increase to about $600,000, the base. So this is how we're tracking it to ensure we follow the direction of the voters.
Just one thing to mention on that, there's more in there than just police or fire. And what we did is when we put the thing on the ballot, we actually had a list of named public safety services. So this actually takes the ballot languages and converts it into an accounting to show voters that we're putting the money where we said we were going to put it.
Okay, and next slide. This is the tourism fund. It has a shortfall of about $850. Of course, there's sufficient fund balance to cover the shortfall. This fund does very well. Next slide. Capital Improvement Fund. This fund houses the real estate excise tax and the transportation impact fees and other grants and loans for the projects that are housed in it. The street fund, the street projects are included in the Capital Improvement Fund. And currently, the REIT 1 monies that come into the Capital Improvement Fund are used to repay the public safety building renovation projects debt payment, and the REIT 2 monies are used for street capital projects. This budget includes a transfer of over $114,000 to the bond fund to help pay that debt payment, which isn't the full payment. The general fund will have to make up the difference. Okay, next slide. The next slide is just the list of projects going through the Capital Improvement Fund. We have overlay projects, 7 different streets that are planned or recommended for next year. And these are funded by the REIT 2 and some general fund one-time monies. Next slide. These other projects are much larger projects, and they are supported by federal grant revenues. And a lot of them, the last 3 on the list, are dependent. They're funding dependent. So depending on whether the funding comes in, will determine whether the project will be able to go. Next slide. The water funds budget, the requested expenditures. The revenues exceed the expenditures on this one. They have an overage of almost $860,000. This is basically due to the issuance of bonds. There's a plan to issue water and sewer revenue bonds to pay for several of the projects in the 2013 budget and to reimburse prior year expenditures on those projects. The surplus will be held in the fund balance for future equipment needs and projects. Also included in the revenue bonds is, in this budget, is the repayment of the water funds portion of the outstanding 1997 water sewer revenue bonds. And then next slide. There's a list of the items, the requests that are being recommended. And you can see that the Angleside Booster Pump Station and the Upper Mountain View Pressure Zone design would be supported by bond sales and or Public Works Trust funds. Okay, next slide. The sewer fund shows a shortfall of $628,000. This budget request includes an annual bond payment to the USDA, United States Department of Agriculture, for the wastewater treatment plant upgrade of almost $1 million. And additionally, the budget request includes almost $100,000 for the bond debt reserve, which we're allowed to pay 1/10 of it into the reserve fund for the next 10 years to build up that reserve of one payment, which is the $1 million. It also includes $143,000 for the short-lived asset reserve. These are all requirements of the financing from USDA for the treatment plant. The costs of operations of the new satellite water reclamation plant are included in this budget and will be supported with service fees paid by the partners, approximately 80%, and then the future users of the system. Now, the available 2012 reserves were insufficient to support this shortfall and the annual payments into the debt reserve, short-lived asset, and satellite plant repair replacement reserve. So included in this budget is a little over $194,000 increase to the rate revenue in order to balance this budget. Additional rate revenues will be needed for future debt and reserve payments. The sewer comp plan and rate study are being done this year. They are expected to be completed this year, and they will help in assessing the rates. As you can see under the expenditures, 70% of the costs are capital. Okay, next slide. And the projects, there's 3 large projects: the Basin 3 rehabilitation construction, the treatment plant upgrade, which is supported by the USDA grant and state partners, and the Basin 5 construction, which is also funded by USDA through a loan. And okay. The next fund is a solid waste fund, and they have a budget request, a shortfall of a little over $300,000. This is mostly due to the planned purchase of a new garbage truck. They just established their new recycling services this year. I think it was July, and that new garbage truck will help them with both the recycling and the garbage services. Okay, next slide. And there's the garbage truck. Next slide. Storm drainage fund. They have a surplus of a little over $300,000 with their requests, and that surplus will be held in the fund balance for future projects. And you can see that 28% of their budget is capital related, and their ending fund balance is 55%. They're building in ending fund balance for reserves for the future projects. Next slide. And there's a list of the projects that are included in this budget: Front Street area improvements, the storm pipe extension on G Street, the Franklin Street improvements, Lake Boulevard Way construction and design. Next fund is the equipment maintenance and rental fund, and they have a shortfall of $72,000. They have sufficient reserves to cover the shortfall. Their expenditures include 24% of their expenditures are capital, with an ending fund balance of 27%. Next slide. Their request, their needed increase in fuel, vehicle parts, and a 12-yard dump truck that many of the funds will be using. Next slide. It's the Firemen's Pension Fund.
It's a 12-yard dump truck, not a 6-yard dump truck. There was
Yeah.
some confusion about that previously.
Okay, the Firemen's Pension Fund has a shortfall of $21,000. This fund takes care of the pensions for our Left One retirees. And there's adequate fund balance to take care of this, and will be for a number of years, although we do need to watch this fund closely, as when any shortage does occur between the liabilities of fund and the tax revenue, it will fall to the general fund to take care of. And next slide, there's the budget calendar again. This is the preliminary budget hearing. Next will be the December 3rd, the final budget hearing. Now, are there any questions or comments before I move on to the ad valorem property taxes?
Nope.
All right. Okay. Next is This 2013 preliminary budget, as presented, includes an increase in property taxes of a little over 1% over last year's levy amount. It includes just a very small amount of bank capacity. I think it was $262. Plus additional taxes for 2012 on new construction and improvements and state property value increases and refunds. The refunds were totaled were $2,956.06. So they've been added in to be included for the next year. And on the EMS levy, we've included the refunds of $428. We received notification from the Treasurer's Office of the refunds that were given this year. In your packet, you have a copy of Ordinance 1813-1112 and the 2013 levy certification. They've been prepared to correspond with the amounts included in the preliminary budget. So if you don't have any further questions and would like to increase the property taxes accordingly, then I would like to request a first reading of Ordinance 1813-1112 tonight, and then to place the ordinance on the consent agenda for November 13th for the second reading and passage, and also place the levy certification on the consent agenda for November 13th.
First, we have to see if there's anybody that would like to speak from the public. I believe if there's any public testimony about this budget proposal, please come sign in, name and address. The white paper at the end of the table.
Thank you, and good evening, Mayor, Commissioners. Tom Davis at 170 West Bushy Road. You have the same problem here in the city as we also have in the county, and it seems to be running a bit amok. The public safety portion of your operating budget is it's very difficult to read. I think it's 49%, or about $5 million, is roughly, for a city population of about roughly 10,000 people. In the county, it's 47%, and if you would approve all the just the sheriff's office budget, it would be $11.5 million. It's an incredible amount of money going toward public safety. I would think that a lot of these other problems might go by the by if we could get a handle on public safety, and in particular the crime rate in the city, which of course you are well aware of, and we are also, it's similar in the county. What that looks like, if I knew, I would be more excited than I am right now. But what it looks like might be in the form of more citizen patrols. I've certainly lived in neighborhoods where I was active in citizen patrols, and I think at one time you had that sort of thing here. If someone went on vacation, for instance, there was a senior patrol that would visit the house. I haven't seen that sort of activity here lately, so I don't know if it's still active. But we need more presence. We need people hoofing it on the street that other people can see for a higher profile. I think there's nothing that deters crime more than other people watching out for crime, doing it in a high-profile manner. If that could be implemented, perhaps it would take place in terms of a performance audit, which I'm going to also advocate for the county, performance audit of the police department. That's not to say that it's not being operated properly, just to possibly look at other ways that maybe we could improve performance or efficiency. I know that meets with a lot of resistance from both the sheriff's office and I would assume from the police department chief here. But with these costs running amok, I think it's a reasonable expectation that the taxpayer should get a little bit more bang for their buck, or at least know that they are getting the best performance out of their public safety officers as is possible. So I guess just winding it up, I'd like to say that maybe this is where most of our attention should go right now, because a safe community is also an attractive community. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tom. Appreciate your comments. All right. Any other questions or comments from my fellow commissioners concerning the budget? Okay. At this time, I believe, and again, I'm putting on my Robert's Rules of Orders cap and trying to operate this meeting professionally. So I would like to close this public hearing now. Okay. That means we are now back into our regular city commission meeting. And the next item is either we are going to just ask for a first reading or we're going to need a motion. I have two little notes here, and so am I just requesting the first reading? Then we don't need a motion. All right, could we please have the first reading of the ordinance 1813, 11, 12, and also for the ad valorem taxes for the city of Shelton, calendar year 2013.
Ordinance number 1813, excuse me, -1112, first reading. An ordinance of the City of Shelton, Washington, increasing ad valorem taxes in the City of Shelton for calendar year 2013.
Okay, and if my fellow commissioners concur, I would like to place this on the consent agenda for the second reading and adoption on November 13th, 2012. I believe that's what we do at this point. Sounds good to me. Very good. Next item on the agenda is our consent agenda. Could I please have the consent, as my fellow commissioners had the time to read the consent agenda? That's okay. Could we please have a reading of the consent agenda? Thank you.
Consent agenda, correct clerical error on vouchers 79462 through 79571 to $677,668.28 from $677,688.28 presented at the meeting of October 15th, 2012. Vouchers numbered 79573 through 79585, 79587 through 79589, and 79594 through 79695 in the amount of $919,743.83. Transfer and banking fees in the amount of $507,828.44. Commission meeting minutes from study session of October 8th, 2012, business meeting of October 15th, 2012, and the retreat of October 19th, 2012. Department of Ecology Coordinated Prevention Grant, Capital Industries Metal Fabricators. Authorize the mayor to sign 2 coordinated prevention grant agreements with the State of Washington Department of Ecology. Authorize the purchase of 2 40-yard drop boxes from Capital Industries, and authorize the city administrator to make the necessary budget modification. Video production conferencing system purchase, additional charges. Authorize the city administrator to make the necessary budget modification.
Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda as read?
I would move we adopt the consent agenda as read.
I'll second the motion.
There's a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda as read. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any questions? Opposed? No. The motion carries. Very good. I'm moving just a little bit slow tonight. We're going on our 11 hours of city work here, and so that's why I'm a little groggy, but I'm sure I'll get through the meeting. Next item on the business here is old business, and this is going to be a briefing presented by our Regional Project Manager, Dennis McDonald.
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. This is being brought back to you again this week. It is intended to secure construction funding for water extension from Shelton Springs Road to the Washington State Patrol Academy, and also to build infrastructure on the academy on site. The reason it's being brought back to you as old business this evening was originally it brought a briefing report and also the attached intergovernmental agreement number 20 had several blanks on there. Those blanks have been filled in since we had a bid opening last Tuesday. So what you have on your current briefing report is the total amount of the funding that we're securing from Washington State Patrol for this project, which is $2,909,938.04. That's the full amount that Washington State Patrol will be asked to contribute to the city to cover all expenses for the construction of this water project, and that includes the contractor's work as well as the construction administration part. So I just want to point out in your enclosure on intergovernmental agreement number 20 on that page 2, it identifies, there was one blank there. The contractor that was selected is Pape & Son Construction Company. Then also on page 3, there was a dollar amount that was blank, and that has been replaced with the $2,909,938.04. And also on page 5, there again, a blank for the contractor has been filled in for Pape & Sons. So the attachment on the back, page 6, was the scope of work, and that includes the total amount for this project. And this coincides with what will be presented to you on new business is asking for award and contract for the Pape & Son, which has been identified in this intergovernmental agreement. So bringing before you is a request that you authorize the mayor to sign intergovernmental agreement number 20 when we've received it back from Washington State Patrol. It's going through their signature process now. And then additionally, I have on here things that I think that will be requested by Michael for the award and the contract, which is essentially authorizing a modification as necessary, and also to approve and sign the award. So I'm specifically just asking you to authorize the mayor's signature of intergovernmental agreement number 20 at this point. So if there's any questions?
Questions, comments? I know this has been a long time coming. I've heard this for a long time, and I appreciate the hard work that you put in on getting this to this point. And so if there's no other comments or questions this time, we do have an opportunity for a public comment on this action item. If there's anybody that would like to speak, now would be the time. Seeing nobody signed in, I would request, a motion for me to sign this intergovernmental agreement number 20. Is there a motion?
I would move that the commission authorize the mayor to sign IGA number 20 after the Washington State Patrol has completed their signature process.
I would second that.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? The motion carries. Thank you. Next, under new business, we have kind of an extension of the same project and the same water line extension here. And so it looks like our city engineer, Mike Michael, is going to talk a little bit about that.
Thank you, Mayor, Commissioners. Yeah, we were just realizing we probably should have done old business, new business out of order tonight because of the process here, but it'll make sense when it's all done. As Dennis mentioned, we did have a bid opening last Tuesday afternoon for this project, the Dayton Airport Road Water Main Expansion Project. This again is the final piece of the regional project. We're finally getting there. And we were very hopeful on good bids. Basically, the project's roughly 15,000 lineal feet of water main, both 8 and 12-inch, extends from the end of our current system at the city limits on Shelton Springs Road, down Shelton Springs, down 101, 102, and then a loop on site at the Washington State Patrol Academy. Engineers' opinion of probable cost was in the range of $2.5 to $3.5 million. We received 13 bids with an approximate range of the bids of $2.2 to $3.5 million, with the low bidder bidding on the evaluation schedules a total of $2,237,549.93. In addition to the two base schedules, we had a schedule for a pipe material alternative, basically PVC plastic water main pipe, and also for additional services to be installed along the Shelton Springs Road portion of the main extension. After evaluating the various bids, we recommended two and got acceptance from Washington State Patrol to award all four schedules. The two base bids, the pipe material change, and the additional water services. Changing from our standard ductile iron pipe to an equivalent plastic material that's been readily available for some time is saving the project nearly $250,000. In fact, that material change was a total of $247,564.45 in savings on the project. So with the composite of all schedules, we have a total
contract
award, and it's actually the old incorrect number was in the briefing report.
Right.
The award form is correct at $2,063,429.13. Again, as Dennis mentioned, this was to Pape & Sons Construction, Inc. out of the Port Orchard area. Worked with them before on the rest of the pipeline, so they're very familiar with what they're getting into out there. So at this time, staff is requesting that the commission award the bid by signing the notice of award. Also is asking that the commission authorize the mayor to execute the construction contract with Pape & Sons when it is returned and after execution of IGA 20 with Washington State Patrol. And then finally asking authorization for the city administrator to make any necessary budget modifications.
So, Mike, can you explain just a little bit why the numbers are so different? There's a $2,063,000, there's a $2,009,000. You know, can you explain the difference in those numbers?
Okay, so the $1,997,000 that was in the briefing report compared to the $2,063,000 was my calculator 3 times in a row, missing the second 4 in the additive schedule for the water services. For whatever reason, it punched in as $7,346 instead of the $73,000. It was caught as we were finalizing this briefing report last Friday, and I can't explain why that one number. We did get it on the important form.
Right,
though. So,
right.
Basically, the bid schedules, though, were broke into, as I said, 2 primary bids. We had the main line off of Washington State Patrol site, as well as the extension on their site. Those were schedules A and C. We had a third schedule, was the alternative pipe. That's the $247,000 figure in the briefing report. And then a fourth schedule that was just 42 service connections along the length of the main outside of the academy site. And we did that because of the unknowns in the bidding climate right now. We wanted to make sure that we had a structure that we didn't need to go back and either adjust or ask for more money through State Patrol to be able to get this funded. We wanted to be able to do it internally, quickly and effectively because of our need to get this done before the end of the biennium.
Okay. And then where did the $2,009,000 come from?
$2,009,000 in Dennis's figures is this construction contract as well as all of the administrative support for the construction management.
Okay.
I misunderstood your question earlier. Basically, that's staff time, testing lab time for testing materials, compaction, et cetera, as well as all of those extra costs above and beyond this contract to be able to manage and get the work done.
Okay. And the good news is that State Patrol has agreed to pay that whole amount.
Exactly. State Patrol is paying for this project 100%.
Right.
And they have, at this point, more than enough money to cover
Yeah,
it, so.
which is,
Thanks to
more
really
good news.
bids again.
yeah, more good news. And I think it's important to remind folks as well that this was kind of the origin of the whole regional plan, is that State Patrol wanted water, and they've had to wait 11, 12 years to get it, but they're finally getting the water that they wanted right from the beginning.
We were kind of joking with Richard Duke about that on
Right.
Wednesday when we met to go over the results here. And yeah,
It's kind of ironic.
Kind of ironic.
Commissioner Olson, did you have a question?
Yeah, I'm glad that the State Patrol is paying for this. I got a couple questions on some of these line items, though. I'm really confused on, like, number 3, mobilization. The engineer's estimate's $275,000, and the bids are coming in at $43,000. It kind of worries me when, what, is somebody missing something or what? There's another one down here, property or project traffic control. The engineer's estimate's $250,000. They're coming in at $36,000. There's another one here, the structure excavation, which I don't even know what structure they're excavating. Dennis kind of clued me in a little bit of it there. Engineer's estimate's $100,000. Their bid's $1,700. What's up with this?
It's all an issue of how they want to, the bidders themselves want to structure their costs. We typically, those particular items, we bid or estimate a little bit on the conservative side. Mobilization, for example, we try and go for pretty much a flat 10%, which is kind of the maximum allowed within the DOT specifications. Some contractors choose to bury those costs in the unit prices of other items. Structure excavation, in this case, refers to the trench excavation. There's 2 classes within our standard specification, one for structures, buildings, foundations, etc., and one for utilities. We base that conservatively on our estimate of complexity and ability to produce the work. Some contractors have different methods. In this case, being one of the lower bids and having direct experience with this area, they have a better sense of some of the issues that they may run into. And so they've elected to gamble, for lack of a better term, that they're going to be more along the lines of what they found last time they were working in the area compared to what we believe maybe in some of the areas based on the limited soils exploration that was done as part of the design.
I understand that part of, allocating their costs. I just worry a little bit of the same issue as we're experiencing with the wastewater treatment plant. At the end of the project, there's all these legal things that we're not quite sure how we're going to work out. And
that is always an issue with any municipal construction contract. So our design team, our staff do the best we can to craft everything around our specifications. That is one advantage we have. All of our work is based on the DOT specifications, which gives us a lot of control, a lot of protection for somebody that comes in and thinks they see something that may or may not be there and wants to try and make a fast buck work in the system. So, and I've got a very good team that knows how to use and apply the specifications to our advantage and our benefit. So,
Yeah, Dave Leary.
Ask Mike to cover one thing there. We started with ductile iron as a spec. We've had some changes in our specifications. Did a little bit, just a couple of pieces on this. Steve and I had a conversation about we were changing. The reason we were changing is because of different soils, and we just didn't need as robust a pipe as when you've got high groundwater and unstable soils. So, can you talk about that a little bit, and also talk about and the other question, and you can have all this to chew on at the same time. I wasn't aware we were using plastic, so that sets up another set of pipes and inventory that our crews have to have in terms of valves and that sort of thing. Can you talk about how we're going to deal with that operationally? Because everything else we got is ductile iron.
operationally, it's no difference. The PVC pipe for water main is sized the same as ductile iron. It works the same as ductile iron. You actually typically use ductile iron joints and fittings on it, valves, etc. Big difference that I'm finding, and really it's not a big difference, is our tapping machine for doing our service taps. I believe from what I'm seeing, we're going to have to get one different set of cutter heads for that. It takes a slightly different cutter head from what I can tell, and I'm not even 100% sure on that. That may be worst case. But all of our equipment, again, the outside diameters are sized to match ductile iron. So all of our equipment works, all of our fittings work. It takes a little bit different procedure doing some of the work on the PVC pipe compared to ductile iron. The advantage, as you can see from the costs, is it's significantly cheaper. It's actually faster to install because of the weight issues. And where we have, the main reason the Class 52, as best I can figure out, was instituted in the city was because of some problems specific to downtown with the high groundwater and corrosive soils. The folks in charge then, and particularly I believe Nels Lund was part of that, decided just to be safe and even across the board, they chose Class 52. It is thicker wall, more robust, etc. From a practical standpoint, it doesn't make a lot of sense as a blanket standard for the city. The PVC pipe has shown to be very durable and a very good product. There are some issues with a specific type of PVC pipe that's out now that's butt fused like you do with HDPE. They're seeing some oddities with that as far as cracking and rupturing. But as far as the bell and spigot, the 15, 20-foot length pipe like we would normally use, that's pretty robust, very similar lifespan and application to the ductile iron. One of the pieces we've been looking at in the time I've been here is we've actually been going through trying to get our standards update is opening up the standards. DOT typically uses Class 50 ductile iron or what they call C900, 905 PVC pipe as their standard material for water mains. Class 52 is used in special circumstances where there's corrosion issues potential. Another piece that's coming out on that is actually a polyethylene sleeve that goes over Class 50 to provide the same corrosion protection that you would get out of the heavier pipe. So a lot of options coming out on the market in the last 5 to 10 years, and probably we're seeing more as we go down the road.
Very good. Thank you very much. Next time I want a short answer, I won't ask you. Yeah, we understand it's okay to use that pipe, right? There you go. Very good. Well, we've had a lot of a robust conversation here about this issue. There's another opportunity for public comment on this action item. If you'd like to speak, there's a white paper on the end of that counter. Seeing none, I guess I would request a motion.
And I will make a motion that the commission authorize the project award and authorize the signature of the project award form to Pape & Sons Construction Incorporated for the Dayton Airport Road Water Main extension or expansion project in the amount of $2,063,429.13, and authorize the mayor to sign the construction contract when it's returned by the contractor and after the execution of IGA 20 with the Washington State Patrol, and also that the city administrator be authorized to make the appropriate budget adjustments as necessary.
I would second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. The motion carries. Next, an administration report. I hope it's not a long one. That's all I got to say. Yeah. Well, if Mike's going, we can ride in his big truck. Just kidding. Little personal note there. We share rides sometimes when we go to functions. So, next is a general public comment period. If anyone wants to say anything, now is your time. I don't see anybody signing in. I did want to make one statement. I wanted to thank our financial director, Kathy Byerly, and our city administrator, Dave O'Leary, and Commissioner Mike Olson for the long, hard process of putting this budget together. So, I appreciate what you went through to do that, and it's not an easy job. I can guarantee you that. So from a personal note, thank you very much. You are appreciated. And that wasn't on my agenda. So it looks like we're in administration final touches now.
Bring forth an ordinance to issue a bond anticipation note to use as interim financing for the USDA RD funding piece of the Basin Plan project.
Okay. Others? That's it, Your Honor.
Anything else? Okay, our next meeting will be Tuesday, November 13th, 2012 at 2 p.m. in the afternoon due to the observation of Veterans Day, so it's a Tuesday meeting instead of a Monday meeting. I adjourn this meeting. Thank you very much.